Eric Bischoff here again, telling you about our friends over at SaveWithConrad.com. Now, Conrad's always talking about how they are helping homeowners save money, but did you know that Conrad and his team can also help you become a homeowner? They make the home buying process more enjoyable than, I don't know, making out with Stephanie and Linda. Ouch! But don't take my word for it.
I'm Willie Proctor, and I'm from Martinsburg, West Virginia. I came with Save with Conrad to buy my first home. Is that once I, listening to the podcast, I heard other testimonials and how easy it was. So, and that was the whole process for me here, was wanting for convenience. Oh, it was a pleasure. I mean, it was like working with family. It really was like, being from West Virginia, it's all about family here. And that's what it was like working with Conrad's team. I worked with Larry, Holly, and Francis. And it was just like, I thought I was talking to my aunt or, talking to my dad, it was a great experience. Yeah, this is actually the house I grew up in. So that was kind of the whole thing. And my mom was moving to South Carolina. She got stressed out about what to do with the house, how she was going to sell it, get rid of everything. And I thought, you know what, I didn't want to see the house go. But at the same time, I wanted to make the process easy for me and easy for my mom. And working with Larry and the team, they made it easy for both of us. Hi, this is Willie Proctor, and I just bought my first house with SaveWithConrad.com.
And unlike the dirt sheets, we're not making this up. Check out all the 5-star reviews. Go to SaveWithConrad.com and do it today. You'll be grateful you did.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm pretty good, Conrad. I telling Dave before we went on that we had a hell of a storm blow through here about an hour ago. So timing for us is good. It's my sidewalk and my driveway are soaked. It's so slow that the trash man's not even got here yet. He's always here early, so he can make a lot of noise. And so, yeah, things are good. Things are going to Grand Rapids this week. Haven't been there in a long time. Been there before in the home of former President Gerald Ford, who's from Grand Rapids. So it's all good, all good. And it's a big week for AEW with the big show in Arthur Ashe Stadium. That'll be fun to watch on television. That's where I'll be watching it. And it's a loaded card, no doubt about that. Hopefully it'll be one the fans will tune in and really enjoy.
It's been a lot of fun seeing everything that's happening in wrestling and AEW and football. We've had a little bit of fun with DraftKings. We're doing a King of the Mountain contest for keeping up with all that on social media. But so far, we're doing pretty good, Jim. We're in a 5-way tie with Click This, Foley is Pod, My World, and the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. We're all tied at 5-4. It's interesting to see how much parity there is in football. You and I are big football nerds, and man, what a fun season it's been to see Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes from Colorado. Man, their sideline is like a red carpet these days. They had, everybody from Offset to The Rock and everyone in between. Double overtime thriller, and then of course this weekend he's got maybe his biggest test yet against Oregon, and then USC next weekend. What do you expect for Deion and the Buffaloes?
Well, under normal circumstances, I would say that the streak is probably coming close to an end because of the quality of the teams, Oregon and Southern Cal. But with Deion's, he's got some magic in him, and so I don't know how that's going to play out. I'd suggest if Colorado went 2-0 the next 2 games, the world is going to explode.
Yeah.
And but it's good for football. People are talking about it. The fact that he had such a close relationship on TV anyway, with The Rock was pretty amazing and good for. You got to say it's not just good for recruiting; it's fantastic for recruiting. And so we'll see. The next 2 games are important, and he's got some players that are out because of injury, which is always a factor this time of the year. So hopefully they'll continue to do well. It's been great for college football.
Oh yeah.
It's got people talking, and there's a heightened interest level, and there's nothing beats winning. How do you fix this? How do you fix that? Well, you win. If you
That's
win,
it.
you're gonna win. You're gonna be okay, by and large. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting weekend for football. My Sooners go to Cincinnati, I think, this week, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
At a 11 a.m. kickoff, I think.
Yeah. So
A
see,
morning game. That ain't bad for you.
no, I'll be able to watch that in my
Yes.
hotel. So that'll be good. You get to get a little football in before I go to work, and that's always good. It's always better when we go to work with a win under our belt as opposed to not. So it'll be fun. It's my normal routine, and I have no problems with it. As long as I get in front of a TV where the Sooners are playing, I'm pretty content. So hopefully they'll get a win in Cincinnati. It's not going to be easy. Cincinnati playing a big time program like OU at home on national television. Those are always issues to deal with. So anyway, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to see how it's going. I'm not looking forward to playing Texas because they seemingly are so much better than we are. But I don't count out the Sooners. They're playing pretty decent, and they're a lot better than they were last year. But last year is nothing to brag about.
A lot of people have this weekend circled for Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Saturday evening game. Ohio State comes in ranked number 6, Notre Dame ranked number 9. What do you think, Jim? If you had to pick, if you were a betting man, Ohio State or Notre Dame?
Well, I probably would go with Ohio State.
Yeah.
On the road, and I'm not going to bet any money on it, but we'll find out how good Ohio State is, and obviously we'll find out how good Notre Dame is. But playing at Notre Dame is quite the hurdle for Ohio State. So we'll see how it works out. But I'm going to go with the favorite, but I'm not sold that the favorite's the bet, if that makes any sense. So what I would say, if you're thinking about betting, maybe you don't.
Yeah, maybe not on that one.
Maybe not on that one. So we'll see how it works out, but it should be fun.
Who would have thought last season we'd be looking at Florida State playing Clemson, where Clemson was unranked and Florida State was ranked number 4.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying perhaps NIL has changed football at a pace that Dabo Swinney can't keep up with or won't keep up with. A lot of naysayers about Dabo and his Clemson Tigers. You think there's any chance they can pull an upset against Florida State? I don't really see it.
I do. I think
I love that.
because they're playing at home.
Mm.
And I think that there's a good chance that Clemson plays like the old Clemson that we've used to seeing at home. I think that's a big deal for them. And, I don't think Dabo's got any heat on him to speak of where he's going to be replaced. His track record there is impeccable. Our coach, Brent Venables, was his defensive coordinator for a long time and did a great job. They won national championships together. So we hope that the Sooner fans hope, obviously, that Coach Venables can bring some of that magic to Norman. And thus far, they're clean. So we'll see. But I do think there's a chance that Clemson at home can squeeze a win out here.
Last one we'll talk about, then we'll move on from college football talk. My Alabama Crimson Tide are going to host Ole Miss. Their big rival, Lane Kiffin, coming to town. Ole Miss comes in ranked number 15. Alabama's ranked number 13. Even though they won last week, they fell 3 places. It feels like the quarterback controversy is at least tabled for now. Jalen Milroe is going to be the starter. Buckner and Simpson will be his support from the sidelines. What do you think? Is Lane going to give Alabama 2 back-to-back losses at home, or is Saban going to right the ship this week?
Well, I think I'm a Saban fan because his track record is pretty damn impeccable. All his national championships and recruiting accolades and so forth. I'm going to hang my black hat with the Crimson Tide this weekend. I think that they got a shot, and playing at home is going to be a big deal for them. But Kiffin will have every wrinkle in the world. He'll try to keep Alabama off balance. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that Alabama's better than their public may believe that they are. And a lot of that depends on what you mentioned just a moment ago, how well will their quarterback play. So if their quarterback play is up to speed up to Saban's approval and his satisfactory level of comfort, I got Alabama winning this game. And the good thing about one thing I hadn't mentioned about Alabama, Eli Gold, the voice of the Crimson Tide, he's doing their home games because of his health issues. Eli lost 100 pounds in his battle with cancer, and he's healthy now. And we talk somewhat regularly, and if nothing else, a text or things like that. He's just a sweetheart of a guy. And when I was going through my issues with cancer, he was going through his as well. But he kept in touch with me, and I kept in touch with him, and we built a nice relationship there. I think he's the most signature voice in college football right now as far as radio is concerned and a team is concerned. So I love Eli. He's a great guy, and I'm just glad that his health is back to where he can manage it. That's what a lot of us guys do, with this cancer issues, one way or the other. I just want to manage my situation. I just want to make sure that I'm maintaining and this wound in my ankle is healing. And that's easier said than done, Conrad, quite frankly, but that's my goal every day. Just get a little bit better and get this wound to heal. And it's not an overnight deal. So, and then flying every week doesn't give me a lot of comfort, but it is what it is. It's like cousin Tony told his cousin Tony Soprano, it is the life we chose.
Yes, it is.
Maybe it was the other way around. I'm not sure, but one of them told the other, this is the life we chose. So let's not bitch about it too much. You knew it was coming. You knew the travel was going to be there. And so I just make the best out of it and move on. There's a lot of people in this world who's got a lot worse issues than I do. And I pray for them. I want them to get healthy and be positive. And that's about all I've been doing, is just trying to stay healthy and positive and heal. So all good. It's like I said, there's a lot of folks out there right now that are listening to us that have a lot worse issues to deal with than do I. And I hope nothing but the best for them. And you got to stay positive. I can tell you that, Conrad. You got to stay positive. Positive breeds more positive, and I think that's important.
Well, I'm positive that tickets are on sale right now to see JR and the rest of the AEW crew in Grand Rapids this Saturday night. It's a big collision. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com. And we're going to see Michigan's own Rob Van Dam making his AEW return. Andrade will be taking on Jay White. And as I understand it, there's a Texas death match between Ricky Starks and Bryan Danielson, arguably the best wrestler in the world, and what a lot of people say is the next big thing in Ricky Starks. So make plans to join JR and the rest of the AEW crew if you haven't already at AEWTIX.com. Of course, we're not here to talk about college football. We're not here to talk about AEW this Saturday. We're here to talk about old school wrestling, and we're going back 20 years to the day to talk about Unforgiven 2003. That's our topic today. And as you're listening, it happened 20 years ago today. The following happened I guess there's some fallout from SummerSlam 2003, of course. That's our most recent pay-per-view in August. So now as we get ready for September, we got to sort of pick up the pieces and start telling some new stories. And, that monthly pay-per-view format has been something that has really been commonplace for wrestling, I guess, since the mid-90s. With the advent of the in your house pay-per-view, we started to see them every month. But once upon a time, the big shows were reserved for a quarterly affair. And it looked like AEW was going to be doing that once upon a time, but we've had these new opportunities. So there was an All In a week before an All Out. Now there's a Wrestle Dream, and we continue to add new shows like Forbidden Door. It feels inevitable at some point AEW is going to go to a monthly pay-per-view format, pretty much like every other wrestling company does.
Seems that way.
Did you have a favorite era? Did you like the quarterly pay-per-view from your old WCW days, or did you prefer the monthly?
I like the old format because it gave the companies, whomever they were, opportunity to build the anticipation for that pay-per-view and that investment that fans need to make to enjoy it. You got to buy it. I think the economy dictates a lot of that. You got to have a great attraction on top. attractions sell pay-per-views, Conrad. It's just that simple. It's not the second match on the card or the third match. It's what's on the poster, so to speak. And so I like the fact that at one time we were able to build stories and strengthen them so that there's a more of a desire to buy and to watch and to get engaged. But hey, look, you got to change to the times. I get that, and I have no problem with that either. But I just think that in the storytelling realm of pro wrestling, that we're better off with the opportunity to build. And but it looks like, I think you're right. I think that the trend is going to be that of monthlies. And if you can build if you're creative enough to build a good story in a monthly, then more power to you, because it creates more paydays. But I'm a big fan of the building the story type situation and building the anticipation for the next big story, the next big thing.
Well, the thing after SummerSlam 2003, of course, the next night is a Monday Night Raw, where we would see La Resistance retain their World Tag Team titles over the Dudley Boys. We'd see Kane beat Rob Van Dam in a no-holds-barred match. We'd also see Jonathan Coachman turning heel and helping Eric Bischoff in his match versus Shane McMahon, and an injured Triple H surprisingly retaining the world title in an Elimination Chamber match against Goldberg, Kevin Nash, Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and Randy Orton. So now we've got the fallout from the next day on Monday Night Raw. And I guess I want to ask, like, we've talked a little bit about Goldberg on this program. I think everybody agrees his second run was much better than his first run. But with the way Goldberg had been booked, do you think in hindsight it was a mistake to not have him win this Elimination Chamber match at SummerSlam?
Well, in hindsight, you can make an argument for that. There's no doubt about it. At least in my point of view, I don't think that his Goldberg not winning killed this pay-per-view, but I do think it would have been interesting to know how it would have grown and how it would have been forwarded if Goldberg had won that match and become the champion. But I didn't see it as being the end of the world. Is it one of those questions where you ask, does Goldberg need the title to get over and be over? Probably not. But would it have helped him to win the title in that all-star cast? And there are a lot of Hall of Famers in that match.
Oh, yeah.
No, it wouldn't hurt him, obviously. Duh. But it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't a deal breaker in my view. So anyhow, I'm kind of conflicted over that situation. But if Goldberg had gone over, I'd have been cool with that too. So in any event, but Triple H had a lot of his supporters in that match, allies, better said.
Yes.
And so it gave him plenty of outs. And the fact that Triple H was injured, made it even more suspect that he should probably be doing the honors on that night. But that's not how it worked out. And like I said, I didn't see it as a deal breaker. But because Goldberg was going to get over if booked in a positive way. And that certainly would have been a positive way for him.
Well, it starts the next show off with, Goldberg coming out and doing a speaking role. We'd always sort of approached less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Triple H comes out and puts the title up at the next pay-per-view, Unforgiven. So this is where the match is made. The Triple H is saying the only way he's going to agree to this is once I beat you, that you'll retire. And he says something like, this is going to have to be a real retirement. I don't mean going to SmackDown and challenging for the paper championship. So he's even burying the other show. But I get that. He's a heel.
Mm-hmm.
Meltzer is pretty critical of this, though, and says that, this show as a result of the booking does a terrible rating. It does a freaking 4.2. Things have changed. 4.2 today would be high fives all around.
Yeah.
In hindsight, do you think, listen, this is where the criticism of Triple H starts to grow. There's a lot of wrestling fans out there who just absolutely despised this era of Triple H And a lot of that was based on what they read in the Observer and the Torch, that, you know, he was holding guys down and blah, blah, blah. But you've stated before here on the show, that was not your experience. You didn't see that. Was it more of a function of Goldberg just not being a good fit, do you think, at this point?
Well, I don't know. Timing serves a lot of masters.
Yes.
Quite frankly. So I don't know if he was not fit. He was fit, and would have made a great champion, I think, at that time. But that's not how the company decided to go, and I don't blame that on Triple H. God Almighty, you know, come on. We're looking for shit. We're looking for something to bitch about, complain about, and but I in my role in talent relations, I never had any major issues whatsoever with Triple H, because I had the ability to talk to him and to converse with him, communicate with him. Communication is always going to be the key. So, no, I never had those big issues that some people have or had with Triple H. You're going to hear most of that from the talent talking to the dirt sheets,
Right.
because they believe that they're getting the short end of the stick, and he's getting all the accolades and all the push. So, you know, and we all know, because there's a T-shirt about it that says, "I need my push." So it must be true.
It must be true. You talked about getting the short end of the stick. Well, if you want to make your stick look a little bigger, can I recommend Manscaped? You see, fresh ball fall is upon us. You need to be in the festive spirit. Light a candle, get some pumpkin spice, and make sure your balls look nice with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. Nature may clear the leaves of their trees, but you'll need Manscaped's help to get ready for that sweater weather. Get your pants puppies prepared for cuffing season with a trim as refreshing as a fall breeze by going to manscaped.com and using our code Jim Ross for 20% off plus free shipping. It's time for nice flannels and cozy socks, but we can't forget to trim our balls. By now, you've heard of them. It's time to join the 9 million other men worldwide using Manscaped and get the kit that covers it all, the Performance Package 4.0. It starts with the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology that reduces nicks and cuts to make raking the leaves a lot less painful. Plus, the lawnmower is a technical masterpiece. This dude has a 7,000 RPM motor, a multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock, and a built-in 4,000K LED spotlight to help you see parts of your body that, well, you probably haven't seen in years. Once you've cleared the driveway, the Performance Package comes in hot with products to cool you down, like the old Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Spray Toner. One to prevent stink and one to clear it up. How about that, boys and girls? With a soothing aloe vera formula, move over pumpkin spice. Fresh balls are the smell of the season. The Performance Package 4.0 caps it off with 2 free gifts: Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. That's one to hold your Manscaped goodies and the other to hold your man goodies. Bring in fall right and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Be sure to use the code Jim Ross as the leaves fall. Make sure you have it all with Manscaped. And right now I want to tell you guys a little bit about adfreeshows.com, because we recently had a chance to sit down and do a live interactive Q&A session with Jim Ross. And these are always so much fun. It's something we do each and every month with all of the different hosts. And you recently did one with Cassio, and you talked about learning the art of the fight from your mentor, Bill Watts. Let's take a listen to your notes here from our recent bonus action on adfreeshows.com.
Well, I learned most of the stuff that I do in wrestling from Cowboy. He didn't overcomplicate things. He kept it simple. And bad guy, good guy, and a lot of violence. People can relate more to a fight, in my opinion, than they can to a Hurricane Rana. Most people can relate to a fight. They sit on the school ground, they sit at a ball game, they sit at Walmart, wherever it may be. They can relate to a fight. They might not relate so much to a Hurricane Rana or a Tope El Suicida.
Catch JR's Q&A event on demand, plus thousands of hours of other bonus content, and do it now with this special offer, courtesy of Grilling JR. New subscribers save 20% off their first month by going to jrsave20.com. That's 20% off month one right now at jrsave20.com. Speaking of money, we should talk about this for a minute. There's a report in the Observer that the financial statement for the WWE came out here September of 2003, and it showed the first positive quarter after 3 straight losing quarters. And a big reason for that is shutting down WWF New York. But this quarter is only profitable to the tune of $2.65 million. Now I realize that sounds like a lot of money for you and me, Joe Blow consumer, but boy, that is not nearly where the company is now. There's a lot of roster, not a lot of new talent, a lot of older talent that maybe is looking for a way out and winding down their career. It feels like WWE is really trying to find their footing in this post WCW era here in 2003. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's accurate.
We know that the other thing we're trying to figure out is what do we do with our former top star in Stone Cold Steve Austin? He's going to be doing an interview here on the Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam, and Bischoff's going to come out. And Bischoff said that Austin wasn't physically provoked at SummerSlam and demanded Austin not interfere with his presentation of Employee of the Month to Coachman. And Meltzer would say, wow, Austin is now doing interviews with B-team announcers that go heel.
Wow.
So
that's kind of stiff.
Well, I mean, listen, we both like Coach, think the world of him, but this is your top guy. I mean, the top guy in the history of the business and what we have creatively for him. Again, he's, it is what it is, but my goodness, it makes a lot of logical sense to me that we should find something for him to do. Was it more about him and Bischoff? And I don't know. It feels like we could have done something with Austin. Was he frustrated with his creative, or was he just happy to be there at this point?
I don't think he was just happy to be there whatsoever. I think that, he was challenging to present creative to. Steve's the kind of guy that he could tell you right off the bat what he liked, or more specifically and more often what he didn't like. The negative at times was he didn't have a better idea. He knew what he wanted when he heard it. And he was very good at that. His instincts are phenomenal. But his downfall, if there is one, was Stone Cold, and you kind of got to look for it because it's not that readily available, is, okay, then what's your idea?
Right.
And he didn't have that. That was not his forte. But he damn sure could execute what he believed in, as we saw on numerous occasions. So, but he was challenging to book for. We'd done so much with Steve. Steve just needed a hot heel to work with and to get in the ring with and to do his thing. And sometimes that didn't materialize, but make no doubt about it. He was the number one guy that everybody was trying to create for, come up with an idea. And, but it wasn't easy with Steve because, like I said, we'd done so much. What more can you do? What other vehicles can he drive to the arena or in the back or whatever? Right. How many Corvettes can he trash? How many Zambonis can he drive? All those things. So it was always challenging because the creative prior to this was absolutely tremendous. So I think that's where his frustration came from. How come I don't have any ideas like those? Well, those just don't come automatically, and it's challenging. But he could take a little something that he liked and make it really, really good. And I thought his work with Bischoff was outstanding. Bischoff was a very, very good villain.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And as I told Paul Heyman one time, and by the way, we got some great feedback on our Paul Heyman show last week. So if you folks haven't heard it, you might want to check it out because it's really, I thought, a good. Conrad and I had a lot of fun doing it and telling Heyman stories and so forth and so on. So anyhow, Steve was just he had good chemistry with Bischoff, and Bischoff was easy to dislike, and that's the key component that you need for a heel. Make sure they don't have a lot of redeeming social qualities, so that they're easier to dislike, and certainly that was the case with Eric.
Before we talk about what's next for Eric on the program here, we get a segment with Conway and La Resistance beating the Dudleys and Spike in 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And Conway's cutting a promo here talking about how we should pull out of Afghanistan and Iraq and concentrate on our own problems. He's a young man here. I mean, maybe like mid-20s.
Yeah.
Even now, I think he's maybe just like 47, 48 years old. He's a guy based on the look and the performance. I just thought Rob Conway was going to be a much bigger star than it wound up working out to be. Was that a timing issue? Was it a reliability issue? Why didn't we do more with Conway?
Well, it wasn't reliability because he's a true pro. I don't ever recall Rob being late for work or being uncooperative or lazy or anything like that. I just don't know what the exact reason was. Timing's one thing you can say, you can contribute it to, but he had great skill set and was a very underrated talent. And I don't know him coming out of OVW was a negative for him or not. I don't know. But in any event, he should have done better than he did because his skill sets were outstanding and a good guy. Rob Conway have been good in anybody's locker room, but on any era that I've ever been in, because he was a pro and a good pro. So I think we missed on him. I think that he could have been better, Conrad. Quite frankly, to your point, he could have been utilized a lot more effectively, but that wasn't the case. But he was a really good talent, really good talent.
You mentioned maybe it coming out of OVW couldn't have been a bad thing. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, politically, that was a Cornette and Danny Davis. They did a phenomenal job in OVW. They created a lot of talent. Go back and look at the talents that came out of OVW.
It's impressive.
It's very impressive. You're right.
Cena, Batista, Lesnar, Shelton, on and on and on.
I don't know who signed those guys. Somebody got lucky. But Rob was a good hand, and I wish he had a better run. I think, like I said, I think we missed on Rob Conway. I think he could have been a real good wrestling heel, and those are heels that can wrestle, can exchange holds, and when they're trumped, so to speak, they can cheat to gain the unfair advantage. So a wrestling heel was what Rob Conway, I think, was best suited for. And I just wish that we had been more intuitive to his skill set so we could have used him better. He deserved to be used better.
Well, let's back up to the OVW thing. I do want to talk about the wrestlers on Netflix, but before we do, you said politically. That almost implies that perhaps Kevin Dunn or Bruce or Vince or Hunter or someone maybe had an axe to grind and begrudgingly kept the relationship going with OVW. Were they anti-Cornette, just didn't believe in the system? Like at this point, you would think the system was proven. Who would have been not a huge fan of the OVW concept? Somebody
feeding Vince bullshit, and he's too small. He's not going to be able to work on top. We're investing time in him when we shouldn't be, type thing. The OVW thing was kind of polarizing, which I find to be somewhat ironic from the standpoint of the names you mentioned that came out of OVW. How could you complain about the success rate of the talents coming out of OVW? And Rob Conway was one of the best talents that we produced in OVW. So he just didn't get his break at the top. When he got to the main roster, it seemed like people were down on him for whatever reason. I never did understand that. He didn't bother anybody. He wasn't a shit disturber. He wasn't a guy that, you had to always manage. Like I said, I'm a big guy on reliability, and Rob was very reliable and should have done better than he did. But, it's hard to say. Politics, it's crazy. It's crazy. And to say that pro wrestling still not ramped up with politics would be a lie on my behalf. And I'm not big on telling lies, especially on this show.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because I'm fascinated to learn more just about, the timing is everything and there are political pieces to it. But the thing that always has been a head scratcher for me, and again, I'm not there, you're not there, we don't really know. but I think it's pretty much a given that the financial investment that WWE was making in OVW back then wouldn't even be a drop in the bucket for what they're spending for the Performance Center now.
Right.
I don't know how you can really argue with that. Like, I don't know the numbers, but I imagine it's 50 times, 100 times. I mean, it has to be so much more expensive what they're doing now at the Performance Center than what they were,
Oh,
the
yeah.
funds they were allocating for OVW. I don't think it's comparable. How can you argue with those results?
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. It's just maybe Rob didn't fit in politically
Mm.
with his peers. I don't know. It's one of those deals where I got the answer to that, Conrad. Here's what you're looking for, and so I don't think it had anything to do with Kevin Dunn. I don't think it had anything to do with anybody other than Vince. Vince didn't see money in Rob Conway, and many of us did. I'm sure that Bruce did to some degree because Rob Conway was a good hand, and Bruce and I are always going to close to being on the same page as far as who are good hands in our eyes and who aren't. And so I don't think Bruce would disagree that Rob Conway was a good, solid hand. And the guys like that you need in your locker room, and guys like that you need on your cards, because you know that when he goes out there, he's going to have a good match.
Yes.
And the fans that are buying tickets are going to be satisfied with what they're seeing. For whatever reason, that just didn't work out that well with Rob Conway. That might be a good interview for Conrad to do somewhere down the road with Rob Conway and find out what his take was on why it didn't work. I'm sure he's got a lot better answer than I do. All I know is that he didn't come across my radar screen as being negative or being less than or overrated or whatever. It just didn't. But politically speaking, it just didn't work out.
Interestingly enough, anybody I talked to who worked with Rob at TNA just absolutely raves about his mind for the business. So
Yeah.
that would be a great interview. I agree with you there. I do want to talk a little bit more about OVW. I'm more interested in OVW right now, maybe than ever, because of that fabulous new series on Netflix called Wrestlers. Have you seen Wrestlers yet on Netflix?
I have not, but I've heard really good things about it. I plan on watching it. I'm not a huge Netflix guy. A lot of that's just because of my technical deficiencies, but I haven't not seen it. I plan on watching it. People that I have a great deal of respect for within the wrestling business have watched it and watched every episode, and have been very complimentary and positive regarding that project. So I'm happy for Al Snow and his team there in OVW in Louisville, and it's something I want to watch, something I'm going to watch. But and I'm proud of what Al's done there on little to no budget. I mean, he's funding it, and I'm proud of Al for that. Al's good. Al's a smart guy. Always had a good head for the business. He has all that experience over the years. He created a hell of a character and a head and all that good stuff. So I don't know how to really put my arms around it until I watch it, but I do plan on watching it because I've heard great things about it. And if you're a fan and you haven't watched it, maybe you're like me, maybe like old JR, you got to give it a shot, because that's what I plan on doing.
I loved it. Can't recommend it enough. I think, some people have the impression this is shot like a reality show. It's not. It's done like a documentary, and it is fantastic. I found myself binging it over the weekend. I was just fascinated with a lot of the different characters. And by the way, let me recommend, don't assume because it says wrestlers that it's quote unquote just for wrestling fans. Watch this with your family, or certainly watch it with your spouse. If you've got a wife who hates wrestling, she'll still like this.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, it's a really, really great effort. Can't recommend it enough. Check it out on Netflix. Let's talk about the next segment here on this Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam 2003. We've got a highlight reel with the whole McMahon family. Linda McMahon's going to come out and say that Bischoff is a liar, and security threw Bischoff out, and he made up the story completely. He's slime. She wants to fire him, but knows that Vince will rehire him. And of course, here comes Vince strutting out there and says, nope, we're not firing him, but my marriage is a failure. And he says that he's actually the victim here because he's had to raise 2 children that came from her demon infested womb.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't really know what the hell we're doing here or what's going on, but it eventually sets up Jericho versus Shane McMahon. I
Yeah.
know that, this McMahon storyline felt like it went on way too long at different times. I mean, there was even a WrestleMania where there was a McMahon in every corner.
Yeah.
But Vince was such a natural performer. I just always felt like, boy, Linda's a good sport, because it didn't feel like Linda really wanted to be doing this, but she's still doing her best. But demon infested womb, boy, we're reaching for things here, are we not?
Yeah, that's pretty stiff. That's pretty stiff, even though it's pro wrestling, and I guess nothing is everything is fair game. Apparently, didn't suit everybody's taste, including mine. I think you're right about one thing. Linda didn't have any desire to be on television,
Yeah.
but she was a key component in the way this story was being told. She was the matriarch of this McMahon clan, so she had a role there that it was logical. It made sense for her to be in this group picture, this family portrait, shall you say. So, but I don't think she ever had a desire to be on camera. I remember her apologizing to me for kicking me in the balls before she kicked me in the balls. One thing you learn about this deal, I got my balls kicked in so many times in that show, I stopped wearing boxers because I couldn't afford the hang time.
Wow.
It's too good a target, so I started wearing briefs because it put everything in a smaller package, not the whole, but in a area, a hit area, the hit zone, the drop zone. So, but I don't think she ever really wanted to do that. I was shocked that the infamous kiss from Eric Bischoff. I read this week where he said that she was a better kisser than Stephanie. That's from Eric. Look, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't assigned any of that stuff. All I got was slapped in the face and kicked in the balls. That was my forte. I was good at that. I could sell and go to my knees and writhe in pain and so forth. But Linda she's such a nice person. And I think it totally went against her own natural personality to be mean to people. I just didn't see that. I didn't see that. But I know that before the one kick in the nuts, she told me she was sorry she had to do that. Not on camera, but off camera. And I said, hey, don't worry about it. It's just showbiz. We'll be fine. And we were.
Next up, we've got Shawn Michaels seconding Maven, as Maven's going to be wrestling Randy Orton. Randy Orton is going to land the RKO, but refuses to cover him, and instead wants to beat Maven with the super kick because he knows Shawn Michaels is watching. That pisses Shawn off. So we're building a story here between Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels. Next out, Bischoff's going to call out Coachman, who's going to start taunting JR. Eventually, Christian's going to come out and complain he wasn't on SummerSlam. Here comes Austin, flipping off Coach. They're talking about how bad the Raw announcing team is, really taking shots at yourself and Jerry Lawler. It winds up where Lawler gets an IC title shot. That really is done, so we can have you and Coach argue on the broadcast. So we're starting an announcer feud. I'm sure you were thrilled with this creative, knowing, all right, Jim, we're going to pay it off in a tag match. You're going to wrestle at the pay-per-view. Like, you had to be less than thrilled with that idea.
The only thing good about that was I was doing the payoffs. I could write down my number, anything I wanted, so to speak. And of course, on the pay-per-views, Vince, that's the only payroll that Vince really paid a lot of attention to. He didn't do the weekly shows, the TVs. That was my deal. And but the pay-per-views, Vince still governed that. And but yeah, I'm being kind of facetious about the payoff. But you get a payoff because you're involved. You're in a match, so you're going to get some kind of payoff. And but my deal was always this. I always felt like there were talents on the roster that were much more deserving of in-ring TV time than the announcer JR.
Right.
I really did. Even though it would cost me some money at times if I wasn't involved. But I just believe that it wasn't what we needed to do. But hey, look, you're a team player. You either are a team player or you're not. And I feel that way today. Guys complaining about doing favors and doing the honors and all that stuff. You got to be kidding me. Come on. It's not that difficult. It is what it is. So I always thought that there were more deserving talents who were using in-ring opportunities to earn their living. And I had a good paying job and I was doing fine and I had no issues with it. I wasn't complaining about my money. It wasn't my idea. But, Vince liked to book JR to get himself into a jam. And certainly that was the case here and going forward.
Oh, we're going to finish the show with Shane going to a no contest against Chris Jericho. Eventually, Kane comes out and they wind up in the back of the building. And, there's a blazing inferno going. And what do you know? Shane blocks it. Kane takes the bump and he's burned alive as the show goes off the air. I know that we're using some creative license with characters like The Undertaker and Kane, but I don't know, man. We're going to burn a guy, throw him into this flame before the show goes off the air. I know we want a cliffhanger, but is that a little too silly, do you think?
Might have been a little too silly. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I got burned by Kane.
Yep.
Was it before or after this?
It was before.
Yeah, I thought so. But that wasn't sold real well. I should have been off TV for a month.
Yes.
But I wasn't off TV at all. So it's like, well, we did that idea. It wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be. Let's just blame it on JR for his selling. So, but whatever. It was, it's getting out there. You got to have some creative license, as they say. And we took advantage of the creative license excuse too often, in my opinion.
Do you think that's Vince or Bruce who really leaned into the creative license? I mean, some of the over-the-top silliness. We know how much Bruce loved the Kane and Undertaker story and those characters. I know he's heavily involved in creative here. We know, like, if there's poop humor, okay, that's Vince. But what about this though? I mean, these over-the-top spectacles. There's a flaming inferno, and he's going to be burned alive as the show goes off the air. Could you see Bruce getting into that more, or Vince?
Well, I'm sure Bruce was involved because he was involved in the creative concept, and Kane was one of his guys and one of my guys. I mean, hell, I hired him. I saw Kane when he was the Unabomber, I think it was his name at the time, when he was working for Cornette in Smoky Mountain. And I said, this son of a bitch needs to be on the big stage. He's smart, he's reliable, he's impressive looking. And I don't know if I ever hired a more reliable guy than Glenn Jacobs. And he's taken his life to another level in politics there in Tennessee, and he's done a hell of a job there. I mean, he's built another life of success. So I always did, and always will have plenty of time for Glenn Jacobs in my life. And but anyway, I'm sure Bruce had something to do with it. I'm not saying that vindictively. I mean, Bruce, if that's what Vince was headed, then Bruce was astute enough to say, well, I'll head that way too. Because that was kind of the way of the world in Vince Creative. Find out what he's somewhat interested in and then help foster it. So, in any event, that's where we were. And of course, Kane came back, and he wasn't going to be gone long. I don't know how long he was even gone from that deal. Probably not much.
Well, that'd be a lucky guess. The Raw the next week actually does a good rating. September 1st from Lafayette is the highest rated episode since May. So as much as we made fun of that cliffhanger, maybe it worked. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so.
And you open the show letting people know that despite what you saw last week, Kane is not dead. So there's a shot of you at the desk. And this is the era where the desk is up by the ramp. It's not down by the ring.
Right.
And you're explaining, despite what you saw last week, Kane is not dead. This is silly stuff here.
But you get your marching orders, Conrad. You get your marching orders. I understand it made me look stupid. I understand that it made the company look a little bit suspect. But that's what was called for. That was the play that was called to run. And so it's simple to me. Run your play. Do what they want you to do to the best of your ability. And that's what I always try to do. And sometimes it's the old chicken salad or chicken shit thing. You know, some of that was chicken salad and some of it was not. So, but you know, hey, you follow the orders, man. You run the plays. Just like Saban will run the plays against Lane Kiffin this week. Kiffin's going to run plays against Nick Saban in Alabama. You know, you just hope that your team, whomever that may be, come out on top.
Well, you're always coming out on top with our friends from Henson Shaving. We absolutely love this product. It is the best razor I've ever used, and I can't wait for you to try it. It's got an old school feel, but with new school tech. Let me explain. This was a family-owned business, and these guys actually started out in the aerospace parts manufacturing business. They made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and now they're using their aerospace-grade CNC machines to make the thinnest razors you've ever seen. How thin are they? 0.0013 inches. That's thinner than the thickness of a human hair. Think about that. That means a more stable and secure blade that leads to less nicks and cuts and scrapes. And it gets better. The razor also has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, and that makes virtually impossible to clog. Seriously, what Henson wanted was to make the best razor, not the best razor business. Let me explain. They mean no plastic, no proprietary blades, no planned obsolescence, no subscription gimmicks. You see, normally when something is better, it costs more money. This is one of those really rare circumstances where not only is it better, it's also more affordable. So if you're taking a look at it over on YouTube, you see it's a standard dual edge blade. It's an old school feel to the razor. The difference is your grandfather never had a razor this thin, 0.0013 inches. So it gives the benefits of new school tech, but the old school feel. But not only that, it's also cheaper than what you've been doing. If you run down to the drugstore and you take a look, they've got their cartridges under lock and key because it's the most expensive thing in the store. Not here. Here it's $3 to $5. Not $3 to $5 a shave, or $3 to $5 a week, or $3 to $5 a month, or even $3 to $5 a quarter. $3 to $5 a year. It's the best razor I've ever used. I will use it for life. I absolutely love it. You will too. Let's say no to subscriptions and say yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/JR to pick the razor for you and use the code JR. Then you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just be sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/JR and use the code JR.
I'm with Conrad on this one, folks. This is the best razor I've ever used. And I've been shaving for over 50 years. I think I started shaving when I was like in 10th grade or something. Because I know my dad chewed my ass out for it. He chewed my ass out about a lot of things. But, you know, it's like, you know, you're starting something that you can't stop because you're going to continue to grow whiskers. And then it was painful to shave. Razor burns, just chafed skin. You don't have that here. All you get is a smooth, clean shave. And hensonshaving.com/JR is what you want, where you want to go. Hey, getting 2 years worth of blades free with your razor is pretty damn amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So give it a shot, folks. You're going to be happy you did. And a lot of you guys out there have never had a great shave. Well, when you get this product that we're so happy that they're a sponsor of ours, that you'll see exactly what we're talking about. It helps, it works, and hensonshaving.com/JR. It's a financial success, it's a technological success, and you're gonna be happy that you tried it. That's all I got to say. Give it a shot. Price is right, product is right. It's great.
hensonshaving.com/JR. So now we're 2 weeks removed, or I guess 8 days removed from SummerSlam, building towards Unforgiven. We finally see Lawler wrestle Jonathan Coachman on Monday Night Raw. Meltzer would say it's not supposed to be good, and it's not. Al Snow's going to come out and say the Coach is embarrassing him. That provides enough distraction for Al Snow to post Lawler. Coach gets the win, and Austin's pretty upset. He destroys the highlight reel set and announces that you will be taking on Jonathan Coachman at Unforgiven. And of course, we know that that's not exactly how it happens, but I can't believe the next segment ever happened. Again, we're 8 days removed from SummerSlam 2003, and we get Vince and Shane doing a little promo here, trying to make peace and trying to say, hey, listen, I don't want to see you get hurt at the hands of Kane. Shane ain't having it. He comes out for a promo, and Meltzer says, for how big he's been pushed, the crowd is not reacting to him all that much. Bischoff comes out and says, hey, listen. And as soon as he gets going, here comes Kane's music. Kane comes out. I can't believe this is real. He handcuffs Shane to the ring post. He pours water all over him. And then he puts jumper cables on his crotch. Kane brings out a car battery and hits a few jolts of electricity to Shane McMahon's genetic jackhammer.
Yeah.
And Meltzer would say, Shane, who is the new Superman of wrestling, didn't sell it.
Wow.
Teased killing him forever, and nobody was going to make the save. Finally, RVD comes out with some chair shots and a Van Daminator, which sets them up for a cage match the next week. Jim, the fiery inferno last week. Not only is he not dead, he's back and he looks fine, and he's here to hook jumper cables up to the boss's son's balls.
Yeah. He got manscaped. Yeah, it's crazy, huh?
I mean,
we were getting out there. It was creative, I'll tell you that. And think about it from Lawler and my standpoint. We've got to make some sense of this thing.
Yes, you do.
And it's challenging. It really is. So, hey, it's like I said, I equate so much to football and running plays and doing what the coach wants, and running the plays it's called. You don't go into business for yourself. So all you can do is just try to make some sense out of a senseless situation. And it's hard. It's hard in that role.
I don't remember because, again, this happened before I was watching, but did Leroy McGurk ever have a guy's balls hooked up to a car battery?
No. About once a year, somebody got hit in the balls.
Yes.
But not too often.
Well, is that where you got broke in of getting kicked in the balls? Were they kicking you in the balls back in the McGurk days too, or was that reserved for McMahon only?
Never.
I mean,
the announcers had a role, and I knew my role. As The Rock would say, know your role. I knew my role was to get all talents over. The referees, get them over, get everybody over. And that was what I did. And that's how I learned the business, was finding a way to get everybody over, whether it be a enhancement guy or a referee or whatever it may be. Everybody had value, or if they didn't, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be on that TV show. Talk. I got my ass shoot out real good one night after TV because I didn't put over an enhancement guy enough, and I didn't make him special. And so that was, Cowboy said, well, why would I hire this guy if he wasn't worth a shit? And the way you call the match, he wasn't worth a shit. So it means our guy that was going over didn't beat anybody.
Right.
So it's logical. You think, well, yeah, I get that. So anyhow, it was a different era, different time. I think sometimes we could go back to that era in a positive way where everybody has value. It's just different levels of value and for different reasons.
Well said. And I hope that, your streak, knock on wood, is alive. I mean, you've been with AEW now over 4 years. Nobody's kicked you in the balls on the air one time. I don't know what happens behind the scenes.
No, I've been lucky to avoid any ball shots. So yeah, but we just don't do. Tony Khan just does. I don't know if he don't believe in it or what. I don't know. We've never discussed it because I'm not interested in getting involved in physicality and angles again. It's just not I'm past that. Not past that egocentrically, but past that age-wise and all that stuff, man. It's, I've done my time. If you want to kick someone in the balls, kick Kevin Kelly or Nigel.
Hey, Nigel knows how to sell that. Let Nigel do it.
Yeah, Nigel's good. Nigel and Kevin are good partners for me. I really enjoy working with them, and Nigel's got himself in great shape. I don't know if he's planning on a comeback somewhere down the road, or I'm not sure, but he looks great and he's smart. So who knows? I think he would be a great addition to the in-ring roster at some point in time if he's physically able to do so. I don't know what injuries Nigel incurred that took him out of the ring. So I'm maybe speaking out of school, but I know that if he were to do something, he would do it right and he would do it realistically. So, and I enjoy working with those dudes. Saturday nights are fun for me.
Did you ever see his stuff in Ring of Honor?
Yeah.
God, he was good.
He's good, man. He still could be good. Again, though, the missing ingredient is what took him out of the ring to begin with, because he had a great career rolling. And I can just tell you now, I mean, we dress in the same area. He's lean. He's in good shape. So I don't know if that's something to pay attention to down the road or not. But he's a great addition, a good hire. Tony Khan made a good hire with Nigel and Kevin.
Yes.
So I think our team does a nice job on Saturday nights on TNT.
We got Tess tagging up with Stacy Keebler to take on Stevie Richards and Victoria. Tess is going to go to high kick Stacy. She moves and instead nails Victoria. Steiner comes in, chases Richards all over the place since there's no DQ. That was fine. Keebler crawls over, gets the pin, and then Steiner's destroying Richards after the match. High kicking women, though. Well, that's not something we do very often these days.
No, that ship has sailed, Connie. I never. There's 2 or 3 things if I were in charge of any company in my career, and that's a lot of companies. I would never book an angle that is based on religion or physicality to women. I just don't think that it translates well. I don't think it's a good deal. So, and it's hard to explain to a kid what they're seeing is okay when it's that believable. And when you see a woman selling and she is in a very compromised situation, it's hard to explain to a viewer that may not be a regular viewer, and understanding the fact that pro wrestling has no bounds at times, because we're going through an era here. This show is a good example of going through an era in time that can never be replicated simply because it's not politically correct. And I'm kind of glad that's happened. You know, you don't need it. You don't need it. You really don't.
The main event of this Monday Night Raw is Shawn Michaels teaming up with Goldberg and Maven. What a 6-man that is, to take on Triple H, Ric Flair, and Randy Orton. It's an excellent match. The fans are chanting for Goldberg the whole match. Triple H takes over briefly. Goldberg makes a comeback on him. He's going to spear Orton. He gives Orton a jackhammer, dares Triple H to break up the pin. Triple H is scared to come in the ring, allows his partner to get pinned. And this is a great way to tell the story here, getting over that Goldberg's a real challenger. And maybe Triple H isn't as confident as champion as he's been portraying. This is probably the way we should have been booking Goldberg all along, but we're cooking with gas now as we get ready for this pay-per-view. And along the way, we have some other news that makes the internet. The company settles out of court with Darren Drozdoff, who we recently lost earlier this year. And I know that your role was in talent relations, but would you have been involved in this sort of settlement at all? Or is this all the lawyers handling this at this point?
Well, the lawyers mostly handled it, obviously. I think I got questioned about things, and I was involved because of my job description and my role. But yeah, it was, that's so sad because I don't know that anybody in our company had a negative thing to say about Droz.
No.
He was likable. He was funny. He had a great sense of humor. You know, I was in that meeting with Droz and Vince, where Vince was wanting his own tape someplace to puke, because I think his name at one time was going to be Puke. I'm not mistaken. Did it last long, that Puke name? But anyway, he was such a lovable guy, and got such a bad hand dealt to him because he really loved pro wrestling, and he was really a good athlete with a wonderful heart. So he's no longer with us. God bless him and his family. I try to keep in touch when I can, but it was just horrible. And and it was a suit. I don't think that WWE could win. I think
Right.
what it was just come up with the right number, and apparently the number was arrived at that would let us progress, continue on, and take care of draws as well. So yeah, it was a heartbreaker, his passing, and I saw him a few times after that, and if we were in the area, but it's just hard to sit there in his living room with all these gadgets and all this stuff. And God bless him, man. He just was a sweetheart of a guy, and I'm glad we hired him. We just he was going to be a natural, and he just got that bad break, and the rest we know is history, unfortunately.
We got some other news and notes. Ernest Miller is going to be taken off of Velocity due to his commentary work. We all thought that dude was just dripping charisma for whatever reason. It didn't click on the headsets. I realize that's not for everybody. What do you think Ernest's issue was? Why wasn't he better at this from a WWE perspective?
I don't know. I like Ernest. I thought Ernest was could bring a lot of value to the equation. But what you got here is you got guys are being put into positions, Conrad, that they had never experienced before to any degree.
Yes.
So they came in green. They came in inexperienced. And more often than not, what I've learned to know over the years is that sometimes to be an effective broadcaster in pro wrestling, it's not what you say. Sometimes it's what you don't say, and that's really important. So I've seen Ernest at some of the autograph shows I've been doing here lately, and I always enjoy visiting with him. He's got a lot of charisma, but he got put into a role that he wasn't prepared for at that time. So I think that was a situation. Then he was measured against the other guys that had experience, like Lawler. It's hard to outmaneuver Lawler. I've gotten a lot of guys are writing things for my next book, and Lawler just sent me something overnight. I read it this morning, got tears in my eyes. But I got Bret Hart's written some stuff for me, and among other people. John Cena was so gracious with his time and his words. I didn't know that John thought that of me. Not that I'm saying it negatively, but it was things are working out really well in that book side. I've gotten through I read the entire manuscript more than once. It's going to be the most unique book I've ever written with Paul O'Brien, and Paul he's the lifeblood of this whole operation because his creativity is unparalleled. So, but I got a lot of my buddies are submitting things that people will be reading on the covers of the books and so forth. Hoping to get something from The Rock and Brian Gewirtz, who was his most creative guy I've ever been around. So he's going to write something. Mick Foley's written something, which is heartwarming. So it's going to be kind of cool. So that's coming out in the spring, and it'll be in my 50th year in the wrestling business. It's hard to imagine, Conrad, in the world we live in, that a guy like me, no fat kid from Oklahoma, can be in the wrestling business, which is kind of a little dicey at times, but it's really unique that I'm able to have all these friendships where I would send a guy a text that, hey, would you mind writing, 3, 4, 5 sentences from my book? I didn't have anybody turn me down. So it's going to be really fun, and it's going to be a good book. And I think it's probably the most perfect book for a hardcore fan because it picks out calls that I've made. But in this book, I tell you why I made that call and why I used those words and what it meant in the big picture. So it's if you want to be a broadcaster or you're just a hardcore fan of pro wrestling and you want to take an advanced course, Conrad, this book has got your answers. It's going to be good. So I hope it does well, and hope folks give it a shot. and we'll keep you apprised here where you can buy it and where you can order it and all that good stuff. So it should be fun.
Should be fun indeed. Can't wait to check it out. And I can't wait to talk about this next week of Monday Night Raw. It's going to be the debut against Monday Night Football. So Monday Night Football is back. The show, which 2 weeks prior had a disastrous rating of 4.2, and 1 week prior had the high since May, is all the way down to a 3.6. And the show actually starts with Rob Van Dam and Kane in a cage. I guess we're trying to get people to tune in and not switch that channel. The show is actually from here in Huntsville. Kane's going to show up, and it looks like there's some sort of effect on his skin. Makes it like he's got a rash from those burns from 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
And
well, at least they followed up, Conrad, on that aspect of that burn angle.
Yes.
At least there's some visible DNA that had been affected in a negative way on the big red machine. So I applaud them for that. But did the angle work? No, it didn't work. But I'm glad that at least we followed up to some degree. So we just did not ignore it. That's not good.
RVD is actually going to get the win accidentally because the cage breaks. Now, of course, it's accidentally on purpose. Kane throws Rob into the cage breaks. RVD touches the floor. So technically he won. Bischoff comes out and says, no, the rules say through the door or over the top, not into the cage, and it breaks. So let's restart the match. And now we have Kane destroy RVD. He wins in 2 minutes and 19 seconds after a choke slam off the top rope. RVD is out on a stretcher. And then Austin comes out for a 20-minute interview segment. 20 minutes of him talking about really nothing. But it's Austin, so we know, hey, man, just put him in the ring and let him talk. People won't change the channel, and that's correct.
Correct.
Christian comes out and complains about his lack of respect. Christian wants to be on Jericho's talk show. Jericho comes out, gets a babyface reaction. Eventually, he's going to start insulting Austin, though, calling him a bully and a failure as a GM. Austin offers Jericho a beer. Jericho says he knows that trick is to set up a stunner. Eventually, Jericho takes the beer, pats Austin on the back, and I guess that's provocation, and Austin stuns him. Jericho's doing the beer drooling spot as he takes the bump. Fun little segment. I mean, I know that, storyline-wise, maybe we didn't progress a lot, but anytime we can get Stone Cold in a 20-minute segment, fans ain't changing the channel, right?
Yeah, they're not changing the channel. They did not change the channel, and that's the value of the quarter-hour ratings and monitoring what's going on in the quarter hour. And with Austin, you got, 3 quarter hours? Wherever it was, whoever the math will tell you. But yeah, 20 minutes with Austin on TV ain't a bad deal. And it's just amazing to me. I saw that picture on our YouTube channel of Jericho in the ring. It's just amazing to me that not only he, but Christian as well, have resurrected their own careers in AEW and have been given the opportunity to grow even more as talents. So I'm proud of those guys. They're a big, big asset to the presentation in AEW for sure. And I'm so glad that they're with the company because they add so much more that the fans don't even see as far as consulting, coaching up, motivating, all those type things. 2 good hires from TK, and those kids did a good job. I say kids, Jericho's no pup, but neither is Christian. But they seemingly are just as good in today, Conrad. I might be wrong because I'm big fans of both those guys. I'm big fans of what they do in AEW, without question. They help us a lot. So I'm glad that they're still active and want to be active. That's the key thing. They want to be active and they want to continue to grow their game. And as long as you have the mindset, no matter what you do for a living, that you are in the business of growing your own game, you're going to, at the end of the day, you're going to get your hand raised, figuratively or literally.
Well, I hate it for poor little Spike Dudley. This next match is something that we've all seen on the internet at least 100 times. It's from Huntsville. It's La Resistance and Conway and Henry and Mac in a multi-man tag team match here against the Dudleys, Spike, Hurricane, and Rosie. They all go 4 minutes and 47 seconds. And everybody's doing their finishes on each other until Henry pins Bubba with a power slam. But that's not really the story. In the post match, we're supposed to have La Resistance throw Spike over the top through a table. Unfortunately, the throw is short, and the top of Spike's head whiplashes against the end of the table, and he goes crashing down into the mat. Meltzer would say, all I can say is that Spike must have done some good deeds in his life to come out of with this without a broken neck.
Yeah.
He was actually fine, or as close to fine as you're going to be afterwards. And Grenade is now a heat magnet just because of how he got in and how he lucked into a push. And now he nearly killed a popular guy. But this is one of the more brutal bumps in the history of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
One of many that Spike took, but this one in particular was extremely nasty. We are so lucky that he wasn't paralyzed as a result of this. When you're watching this, I mean, this has to be disaster, and you think, oh no, this is a permanent injury situation. What do you remember of this?
It scared the hell out of me because I thought there's no way that little Spike was going to be able to endure and withstand that bump. And, you know, I was actually, I think, in Grand Rapids at a deer camp when Droz got hurt. I was there with Austin doing some vignettes and some videos. So I wasn't there on site when that occurred. But I just thought that there's just no way. There's no way that the little guy. It just proves that Spike Dudley was one of the toughest guys we ever signed, and what a wonderful human being he was and he is. So I just didn't know how he was going to. I felt essentially the same feeling that I had when Mick in the Hell in a Cell in June of '98 with Taker. My reaction there. So. But I just didn't think Spike could withstand it. I didn't see how any human could withstand it. But he's tougher than a $2 steak, as they say, or somebody says. And he's just what an asset he was to our company. He really was. He contributed much more than people will ever know about. You know, he was a big asset to the. You know, Spike Dudley helped the Dudley brand.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so that was good. And the Dudleys became, as we know, one of the most successful tag teams in the history of pro wrestling. And so, hey, I was going to say, I was listening to Busted Open the other day, and they had Maven as a guest.
Yes.
And boy, what a great talker he is.
Yes, he is.
He was articulate. He understood what a soundbite was. He was just so. He was always really intelligent. He had a college degree, and he was a school teacher, and all these things. And so was Spike, as a matter of fact. So, you know, we delved into the college graduate situation. But I was really happy to hear from Maven. He's back in Virginia, makes a few appearances here, there, and yon. But really, I'm surprised that somebody on the Indies, especially, haven't tapped into his skill set. And he's got great name identity. You know, that one thing he did with Taker, where he eliminated Taker from the Royal Rumble, was his
made man.
He's a made man, baby.
Yes.
So it was good. It was good. But I'm glad to have heard from him. It's been a long time. So those guys on Busted Open do a great job with all those interviews. They know the questions to ask. They let the guy talk. They don't interrupt and talk over each other incessantly. So, but I was glad to hear Maven kind of get back on the radar a little bit this past week on Busted Open.
He's got a great new YouTube channel as well. So go out of your way to check him out on YouTube if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. Coach and Al Snow are going to come to the ring here, and Meltzer would say, die a brutal death. Coach was making fun of JR. And do you realize that when WCW did it with Ed Ferrara, everyone in creative thought it wasn't creative or funny? Well, just because WWE is doing it, it's still neither. The crowd certainly thought that way. And Coach showed photos of JR's face superimposed on a bodybuilder, a sumo, a dancing girl, a government mule, Jabba the Hutt. Nobody laughs. And then he starts the personal insults. And JR comes to the ring and keeps getting insulted. Lawler ran out with him since Snow was in the ring. JR decks Coach after he knocked JR's hat off, and Lawler decked Snow with JR booting him out of the ring. This is silly. It's stupid, but you did it. Your old pal Al Snow, I know you like Al. I know you like Coach. I know you love Lawler.
Absolutely.
You're just running the play, man. Right?
That's all, baby. Coach said, "Save and call the play," and I ran it.
Yeah.
Simple. That's all. And my only issue, again, was what I said earlier, was JR taking valuable TV time away from the actual wrestlers. I believe that to be true. And I didn't deserve that ring time. And if it had been getting great I don't know what the quarter-hour ratings were on that thing. And sometimes we did pretty well, I think, but best I recall. So it'd be interesting to see what those quarter hours were for that fiasco. But in any event, it was what it was. And again, we ran the plays, baby. Just run the play.
Well, the play to finish this episode of Monday Night Raw is Hunter whacking Goldberg with a chair. Flair's going to gig him, and Goldberg bleeds. They go for a pedigree. Goldberg does it too quickly, and it looks less than ideal. So Hunter does it again. Still doesn't look great, but I guess it gets the job done. And I'm sure all this adds to the narrative that Goldberg's just not ready for prime time, and the backstage burials continue. Around this same time, Hulk Hogan is the subject of a Randy Savage rap, and I guess so is Triple H, because, yeah, the Macho Man put a rap album out. Can't believe that's real. Be a Man, Hulk. Yeah. There's lots of rumor and innuendo out there about why this never happened, but it does feel like when so many other guys came over from this WCW invasion, it was odd that Macho Man wasn't a part of that. And I realized at the time he wasn't even under contract to WCW. So in theory, that should have been an easy deal to pull together, but it just wasn't.
No.
Do you remember it ever coming up about bringing Savage back?
I didn't, because I didn't enjoy working with him.
Oh, okay.
So, and it wasn't because of his lack of talent. He just was hard to get along with.
I see.
And he second guessed everything. But was he a star? Oh my God, yes, absolutely. At one time, Vince had Savage as hot as anybody that we had on the roster,
right,
including Hulk. And that's hard to say. And that might be an eye-rolling thing. People are listening to the show. But Randy got hotter than hell, and that was because of Vince's booking and allowing Savage to contribute in a controlled way with his own creative. So, but Savage is just, he wasn't a popular choice to come back into the locker room and to come back into the team. And so, for whatever reasons they were, he was daunting to work with at times. And, when you're not hot, the last thing you want is to have a talent come in that you perceive might be negative and might be problematic. Because, Randy's situation was, he's a smart guy. He needed to be on top. And apparently Vince was just not ready for Randy Savage to come back in and be on top. He never made it back. Hogan made it back. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall made it back. A lot of guys made it back, but not Randy Savage.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening on September 15th. We're in Columbia, South Carolina. We do a 3.73 rating, and we're up against the Cowboys and the Giants, which is a big game at the time. Mm-hmm. And we start with Jericho and Christian opening the show, picketing that they don't want to do anything until Austin is fired. Austin comes out, and of course, he's basically trying to get them to provoke him so he can hit them. And somehow this leads to Jericho taking on Van Dam, with the winner getting a title shot at Christian's Intercontinental title. It ends with a no contest, so that leads to Austin making it a three-way at Unforgiven. Man, if we're going to get Rob Van Dam and Christian and Jericho in the ring at the same time, I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm watching. That's three good hands, boy. Three really good hands. Sometimes RVD doesn't get the credit that he deserves. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. So talented, so unique. His skill set was tailor-made for him. He developed it. It just was outstanding. But Yeah, that match is, you have to look at it really diligently to figure a way for it to fail, because those guys are all really, really good at what they do. And that's one of those matches where, when it gets booked, you said, man, I can't wait to call that one, because that's going to be really good. And that's kind of how I felt on that deal. This is a can't miss hit, in my opinion.
No doubt about it. And we've got some more bad news for Spike after last week, where he nearly was killed in that post-match thing with that table. What do? Well, we bring him out with a neck brace, book him against Rob Conway, who's going to beat him in 20 seconds, and then power bomb him through a table. My goodness.
Well, it showed at least that the company had some confidence, Conrad, that Conway had something, because he wouldn't have been given that quick squash win if somebody backstage had not thought, well, this guy's got something. We just got to figure out how to get it out of him and how to position Rob in the right place. And we followed up on the angle. And the Dudleys you saw a little cameo there. The Dudleys consoling Spike, but it was interesting. It was an interesting scenario. A lot of questions. That one slide that Bull Raymond's put up there with the Dudleys consoling RVD told two stories. It told the story that Conway, maybe there's hope. You hope so, because I thought he was, again, as I said earlier, underutilized for us. And then you had the Dudleys out there with showing their love for their little brother. And so it worked out pretty good in that respect. It just never went anywhere.
Well, we know that if you really want to go some places, and maybe you're looking to get something as hard as those tables that Spike Dudley's going through, Blue Chew can help. It's a unique online service that delivers you the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Take these dudes anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is simple. You'll sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all done online. So that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, the promo code JR, to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
We sure do. They've been with us for a long time. And, the thing I say a lot about our sponsors, especially those that I use when something works, tell the folks that works. Don't bullshit them. Tell them the truth. And the truth is that Blue Chew works. And right now, you get that first month free, pay $5 shipping. That's about as good as you're going to get, with it, as far as I know. So it's a hell of a deal. And their customer service is impeccable. The product works. I don't know what more you would want as a consumer than those two things. It works, and it works very effectively. That's how I think of Conrad. I'm a devotee.
Yeah, man. Everybody who's tried it loves it. You will too. Check it out. BlueChew.com. Use that promo code JR. So next up, we've got Bischoff, and he's been alerted that there's two half-naked women in his office. In actuality, it's Moolah and Mae Young, who thankfully are clothed. And Young gives Bischoff a kiss, and fabulous Moolah, who's just turned 80 and is in her hometown, is going to pin Victoria in 31 seconds. When Victoria punches Mae, and that allows Moolah to schoolgirl her, Victoria is going to jump her after the match. Orton runs in, pulls Victoria off, acting like a gentleman. Then he tells Victoria that Moolah was a legend in the business, but I'm the legend killer, and gives her an RKO. Man, this is something we didn't expect to see. An RKO to an 80-year-old Moolah. She had to love it, though. Did she not?
Oh, absolutely. My God. She was frothing at the mouth. she was chomping on the bit to take another bump. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's what heels would do, I guess. That's kind of how I looked at it, because Moolah knew how to take the bump. It wasn't as dangerous as it was perceived to be by some fans. She's 80s, her birthdays, her hometown, blah blah blah. Moolah, it was one of Moolah's finest hours of her entire career. There's no doubt in my mind. And Lil, as I learned to call her when she was working for McGurk once or twice a year, Lil was in her heyday. And certainly Johnny Mae Young had a blast too. So to see the smile on their faces was just tremendous. They love the business at 80 and we're looking for more bumps to take, which is pretty phenomenal.
Pretty phenomenal is not how I would describe the contract signing between Bischoff, Shane, and Kane. It's all to set up a match at Unforgiven. During this segment, we see Shane hit Kane with 5 low blows, a chair shot to the back, and he came off the top rope with an elbow through the announcer's table. This isn't the match. This is the contract signing for the match. I don't want to make assumptions, so I'm just going to ask. But when I see somebody doing so much in a segment like this, it makes me wonder, did they produce this themselves? And with any old talent, I might not suggest that. But with Shane being involved, I wonder, did Shane, do you think, tell some agents and stuff, no, I got it. Here's what we want to do. Because I'm just thinking, at this point, we've thrown a guy in fire pit. We've electrocuted his balls. We're hitting low blows and chair shots and coming off the. What are we going to do at the pay-per-view? Shoot the motherfucker?
I don't know. Left? That's all right. What's left? Well, I don't think Shane went into business for himself. I'm sure he had some suggestions and ideas to contribute to that process, without a doubt. But at the end of the day, VKM's the guy.
Yes.
And it's going to be VKM's, okay, let's see how he pulls it off. And who knows, it might work. I mean, really, it could work. We'll see. But yeah, I think I don't think Shane went into business for himself. This from Conrad. I think he had lots of ideas. He always had lots of ideas, which is a credit to him. He didn't come like JYD would say back in the day. All head, no rear end is because somebody's a head of cabbage or something. I can't remember how that went. It didn't go that way. It was better than that. But nonetheless, I don't think Shane would have gone. I don't think Vince would have let him go into business for himself, because left of his own devices, God almighty, could you imagine what Shane would do if he just had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted? We'd already seen he was fearless and sometimes not real logical, because he's taking chances that were a little bit risky, to say the very least.
We should mention that there's another storyline going on here that allegedly, and again, this is all storyline, Gail Kim slept with Eric Bischoff to get her a better spot, and now she's going to team with Molly Holly to defeat Trish Stratus in a handicap match that leads to Lita returning. This whole thing makes me wonder, is timing the story of Gail Kim? I don't think she ever really got a fair shot here.
No, Gail Kim is still a great competitor, great performer. I had a little issue with selling Vince on a sexy Asian competitor, performer. And I said, Vince, there's porn sites that just feature Asian women. What? Yeah. How do you know? Well, I do research. I thought of all the women we hired over the years, Gail Kim was probably the most underutilized one that I can remember off the top of my head. Classy person, beautiful look, physical, mechanically sound, everything. She was an Asian woman, so who cares? She's also beautiful and sexy and athletic. So, but we didn't. That's another one we didn't get the mileage out of that we could have and should have, in my opinion. I'm glad that she's still in the business. I know she's doing some stuff with what's that company?
Impact.
Impact, yeah. I'm sorry, I got a blank. I'm not pissing on Impact whatsoever. I enjoy what they do, and it gives the talents a place to work.
That's right.
And a TV show to be appearing on. But I love Gail Kim's work, and I think that we probably missed on her as much as any female that we ever brought in. She just was amazing, and she still is amazing. She still contributes to the business, and for that fact, we can all be fortunate, because the more Gail Kim I see as a competitor, a performer, the better off I like it, because I think she's just tremendous.
Well, what's not tremendous is we see Val Venus beat Test when Steiner comes out and distracts him. But the real story is that Coach and Snow are doing the match for the announcing, or they're doing the announcing for this match, and they're dressed up to make fun of you and Lawler.
Yeah.
And Meltzer says, this didn't work in 99. It's not going to work now. Eventually, Lawler challenges Snow to a match. He wins in 2 minutes and 19 seconds with an inside cradle. And Meltzer would say most of this was JR and Coach arguing at the announcer's table.
Horrible.
Over not Coach knew any wrestling moves. And Coach noting that he looked better. He's better looking. And this is stupid, of course. And then Coach decks you from behind. You nailed it. Horrible. But we're trying to get ready for the pay-per-view. But the main event of this Monday Night Raw is promo with Triple H for the go home. His mic keeps cutting in and out. And he says, well, this mic is like Goldberg. It doesn't work well. And eventually Goldberg comes out, power slams Hunter to end the show. Maybe not the best go home. Meanwhile, on the other channel, they've been setting up Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar for an Iron Man match. And between this show and the pay-per-view, they do a 60-minute Iron Man match on SmackDown. And I couldn't help but think to myself watching this back then, boy, I bet JR would rather be calling that match than playing grab ass with Coach and Al Snow.
You're right. Yeah, I'll say that. You're right about that one. But hey, it's just the hand that was dealt, baby. And so you just go out and do your job. It's real simple. Just go do your job, JR. And I did my job as best I could. Did I like the creative? No. How can any real fan like that creative?
Right.
I don't think you can. It was unlikable, shall we say. And if it wasn't, it was damn sure close.
We know that you're going to appear with John Cena at the first OVW anniversary show. Obviously something you're doing to help check up on some talent and do a solid for your pal Jim Cornette. And then we're finally here at the pay-per-view. 360,000 buys. The year before, we had Brock Lesnar against The Undertaker at 296,000 buys.
Interesting.
So no matter what we're saying about Goldberg, we can't say that he's not a draw. We went from 296 to 360. And that's when, we're starting to pull the nose up on this thing, or so it seems. Despite all that, 44% of the readers of the Wrestling Observer gave the show a thumbs down, but that's not as important as the next stat. It's a sellout. 10,347 fans are here. It's an all-time pro wrestling record at the gate for $560,000. That's a record for Hershey at the time. And we've heard of a lot of big shows at Hershey.
Yeah.
Even back through the Attitude Era. So to set a record, how can you be upset with that? There is a dark match. It's Maven pinning Stevie Richards in 5 minutes and 13 seconds. And then we've got the actual pay-per-view started with Bubba and Devon winning the Raw tag team titles in a handicap tables match, beating La Resistance and Rob Conway in 10 minutes and 17 seconds. Meltzer would say that this was a last-minute decision to switch the titles because Sylvain was injured. He's going to be out for a few weeks. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about them, but it feels like they were both heat magnets, whether fair or unfair. But also, too, losing to the Dudley Boys, no shame in that. I mean, probably the most decorated tag team in wrestling history.
Right. No doubt. Well, the thing about La Resistance, the gimmick wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I don't think the gimmick was bad at all. But how they arrived at that place on the card was a little bit controversial. And I think that Pat Patterson's influence on Sylvain Granier's progression didn't do Sylvain any favors. And even though Pat was beloved and still is, a lot of the talents that were being overlooked and were not being utilized had an issue with it. And so then the word spreads, and then, well, and all that stuff. So I don't know. It was not a good scenario, quite frankly. And Sylvan needed to, I just thought the gimmick wasn't bad. I just thought they got to their tipping point too early. They weren't ready for that success. And I said this before on the show. The fact that socially and how you conduct yourself in the locker room, and you don't walk around like you're a top guy when you're not a top guy yet, is pretty revealing. And I think that's the case in this situation. So, but again, I didn't hate the gimmick, but they weren't ready for it yet. They meaning pronoun boy, La Resistance.
Next up, we get Test beating Scott Steiner in a match where Test put Stacy Keibler up against Steiner, pitting himself up as a slave. So if Steiner loses, he's Test's personal slave, but if Steiner wins, he gets Stacy Keibler. Meltzer would say this was pretty bad, including a spot where Steiner lost Test on a Tiger Driver attempt. Keibler kept helping Steiner, but to no avail. Keibler goes for a chair shot on Test, but he moves. Steiner gets it, and Test scores the pin after a high kick. Bill Simmons had an opportunity to interview Nick Khan recently on the heels of the Endeavor merger, and he wondered, hey, are you guys going to bring Test back?
No.
That might be tough to do, huh?
God almighty. That's somebody, he didn't do his research, did he? How long has Test been dead?
14 years.
Bill dropped the ball on that one. He's normally pretty accurate.
He's usually right on the money.
Yeah.
Did you have any issues with Test? I mean, I know there at the end it had to be less than ideal, but
yeah,
were those problems apparent at this point, do you think?
No, not really. His drug abuse and was his downfall, obviously.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen overnight, but that was his issue, in my opinion. He had all the skills. He's big, tall, athletic, looked great in tights and all that good stuff. Not a bad talker, but he just, again, pills. And, I've talked to him where when I finished talking to him, I said, I don't think he will remember one thing we talked about because I believe he was high, but I couldn't prove it. So, but obviously there were times when he was impaired more often than not. And it started growing. And so he got into a match with these pills and stuff that he couldn't win. And so when he passed away of a drug overdose, nobody was shocked. And that's not, I always felt bad about that too. But a guy's got to want help. If you want to get rid of your drug problem, you got to get it treated, and you got to be serious about the treatment. And I don't think he'd rather be high as not.
Well, it's a sad story, man. I wish
Yeah.
that we didn't have so many of those stories that ended that way. The other side of this match is Scott Steiner, and you take a look at his, I guess we'll call it an experiment. It's an 18-month run. He comes in super strong, super hot, with a big-time feud with Hunter. Quickly, we realize this thing ain't going to last. And now he's on the second match on the pay-per-view losing the Test. It just failed experiment, to say the least, here with Scott Steiner.
Yeah. That's another guy we could have got more productivity from.
Yes.
But we didn't. And then, Scotty was very outspoken, could be a little intimidating for a lot of people. I've been around him for so long that I never had any issues with the Steiners. Starting with Cowboy, using Rick and getting Rick from Gagne and AWA to bring in some talent and a kid that both Cowboy loved the amateurs because they were usually very sturdy. They were very reliable. They were physical. They could work through issues, and that's how I kind of saw that deal. But Scotty sometimes didn't play well with others. And that's the other's fault, in my view, because you got to learn to communicate. What's it going to take to sell you and get you over? I don't, we weren't finding the combination on this particular conundrum. Scotty could have been a lot more valuable, much like Goldberg. You got to, but that their WCW background and all that stuff probably played a role, which it shouldn't have. But nonetheless, it did. And Scotty was, losing early and convincingly wasn't the way to get him over.
Let's talk a little bit about the next match. This is arguably the best match on the show. It's Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels. And if you're going to watch one thing from the show, I would recommend it be this. It gets 3.5 stars on the Observer. Meltzer would call it the best thing on the show. He would say that Shawn did a good job carrying things. And, quote, Orton didn't show himself as quite ready for where they're pushing him, but he's also only 22 and probably will get there. He's actually 23 in this match. But when you watch it back, I want you to remember this isn't 43-year-old Randy Orton, who's a 20-something year ring veteran. This is 23 years old. He's been legally able to drink a beer for 2 years, and he is going 20 minutes with Shawn Michaels on pay-per-view. You've asked a lot of him, and he delivered.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know. I think this is the seeds of greatness, a sign of what's to come with Randy Orton the rest of his career, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. Vince was not for me hiring Randy in the very beginning, and largely because Randy was, I guess, dishonorably discharged from the Marines, and Vince took that personally. I don't know why, but he did. But I've always seen greatness in Randy. I saw it from the very beginning. He had that DNA and that timing that was just natural. So, and then I thought he went step for step with Shawn very admirably. And I thought that was, I'll agree with Meltzer on this point. That was the best match on the card, without a doubt.
We got to recommend that you watch it. Randy Orton gets the win, one of the biggest wins of his career, probably the biggest at that point. And it sets up the next match. Trish Stratus is going to be teaming with Lita to take on Gail Kim and Molly Holly, arguably 4 of the best in-ring performers of the era.
Yep.
They get 6 minutes and 46 seconds, and Lita is going to pin Holly after a moonsault. It's Lita's first match back. I also would say she does look a little rusty, but again, let's remember she just had fusion surgery. So she's going to wrestle a little different because she's got to be at least nervous about it. Along the way, though, she does chip a couple of teeth and nearly bites through her tongue. It's a rough match for her, but she got through it. 2.5 stars. This is before the women's division is really what it is today, but this feels almost like a precursor. Again, let's remind everybody, Trish, Hall of Famer, Lita, Hall of Famer, Molly Holly, Hall of Famer, Gail Kim, one of the most underrated and certainly a Hall of Famer. I mean, you got all the great talent here in the same match. This is showing what WWE can do when they're at their best in the women's division here.
Yeah, I think so. Those 4 ladies did a tremendous job of bringing awareness to their skill set. They just were phenomenal. And that was a kind of I don't want to say a tipping point, but it was certainly seemed like it was going to lead to bigger things to come as far as the ladies were concerned. And I don't know that we could have picked 4 more deserving, more talented females that we had in that tag match. It was just a real perfect booking, I thought, of what potentially the women could do. Vince always gave me this mandate. I want you to hire athletic 10s. Well, there was some, there's always a room for negotiations and that requirement, but boy, they were just phenomenal. And the match could have had more time as far as I was concerned. I thought they were cut short on the time a little bit, but they got their message across. Hey, we should be noticed. We should be recognized. And I think that they just did a phenomenal job. I was very proud to have them on our roster, to be honest with you. And they led the way to what we're seeing today. Female wrestling has not ever been as healthy, I don't think. It hasn't been in my career, and I've been around quite a while, as it is today. So congrats to them, and they opened the door for a lot of opportunities that we're seeing women achieve today and make a lot of money. You know, I think if the fans knew what, and I wish I knew because I just for the darn, but I don't know what these ladies are making some serious cash, and I think that's great. It you know, high tide raises all ships.
Yeah, it
So,
does.
yeah, you know.
Next up, we get Kane and Shane McMahon. It's a last man standing match, goes nearly 20 minutes. Tons of chair shots all over Kane to get started. A coast to coast drop kick to the stairs into Kane's face. It's probably the biggest pop on the whole show. As you might imagine, we're going through some Spanish announce tables. And we're also going to climb. I can't believe this is real. We're going to climb to the top of the set. The Unforgiven pay-per-view set here, and doing a swan or a senton off the top. Nowhere near Kane. Meltzer would say it was a good match for what it was, even though it's the kind of match that's fashionable to hate. And I don't like anything that encourages too much risk to get over. That said, seeing Shane allowed to look that good and have the monster Kane fail to put him away, but Shane beating himself probably wasn't the way to do things. 3 1/4 stars. Listen, it's a spectacle jumping off the set. My goodness. But
yeah, it was an attraction match, Conrad. It was never going to be a great, you know, Funk Briscoe type thing. It was going to be a high spot attraction match. And that's what it was. So looking at it in that regard, you have an inexperienced guy in Shane who hadn't had that many hours in the ring as a active performer. And Kane is a unique talent to book around. So it was an attraction match. It was like Andre and the Battle Royals. It's kind of one-dimensional. It was a little bit, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It just didn't work other than for what it was laid out to do, and that was to be shock and awe. And Shane coming off that set was, and I banged him up too. I remember that because he was, I thought he might be concussed. To be honest with you.
There he is calling right now. Check and see.
Oh, that damn McMahon.
I can only hope.
Hey, Conrad, what do you do when you get a call from somebody that says unknown?
The
same thing I'm doing. Nothing.
Well,
there you go. You're gone. See you. Sorry, folks. Sorry for that interruption. I don't know who. It's just said unknown on it. When they say unknown or spam risk, you don't get answered. If you're not in my directory, I'll let you leave a message and I'll try to call you back. I'm not guaranteeing I'll call you back, but I'm trying to call you back. That's
somebody I know.
Go ahead.
Somebody I know you're always calling back is AG1.
Yes, sir.
Shane had some of that before Kane gave him that beating. You should start every single day with 1 scoop of AG1. It's got 75 different ingredients that are going to set you up for success. We're talking all your vitamins, your probiotics, your whole food source superfoods and ingredients, everything you need to guarantee success. It's a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and all the nutrients you really need. Think of it as a way to replace your multivitamin and your probiotic and more in one simple, drinkable habit. It's a foundational nutrition supplement that covers whole body health. It's everything you need. And you should try it. If you're looking for better gut health, if you're looking for more energy, if you're looking for more strength, more focus, more clarity, or maybe you just hate taking pills and vitamins. Maybe you just want a supplement that actually tastes good. Maybe you want to support your immune system. Well, man, this checks all the boxes. I highly recommend it. And I think you're going to love it, man. I've yet to introduce this to somebody who didn't dig it. My wife absolutely loves it. She tells me she can feel the difference when she skips a day on her way to the gym. If she misses that AG1, she's not as productive there. And I know I'm not as productive at work. I get that afternoon crash around 3 or 3:30. Not anymore. Not with AG1. I'm able to focus longer. I'm more productive longer. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go right now to drinkag1.com/JR. That's drinkag1.com/JR. Check it out. You're going to love it.
Sure are. It's an essential, and it's so easy to take. there's so much for you in a positive way. And that's why you see all these AG1 commercials all over television, especially here during football season. It's just the way to go. It's real simple. So give it a shot, folks. Drink AG1.com/JR. And it's a great deal. It's a great deal, and it makes you feel better. It helps your overall health in so many different ways. AG1 is worth a try, without question.
Next up, we've got Christian retaining the IC title. It's a fabulous 3-way over Chris Jericho and Rob Van Dam. Probably the 19 minutes and 3-second match of the day. It's a pretty fun match because it's got these 3 guys in it, but it's weird because the first half feels like the crowd's not really with it. Maybe it's just a lot to overcome after what we saw with Shane and Kane, but the second half is some of the best stuff on the show, according to Dave Meltzer. And I recommend you watch this one too. If you're going to watch 2 matches, I still think Randy and Sean had the better story and the better match. Sometimes these 3-ways can be a mess. I don't think this was one of them. Christian comes away with a busted mouth, but he retains that title. This is a fun match, man. In this era, I couldn't get enough of Rob Van Dam. I was ready for him to be at the top of the roster. This feels like a step in the right direction when you're wrestling, guys like Jericho and Christian. And now it's crazy to think all these years later, Jim, they're all going to be on the show. I mean, they're all with AEW. They're all on TV this week. Isn't that wild? 20 years later.
Great. I like the fact that they're continuing to reinvent themselves. Is a mark of courage and confidence. And wrestlers that can do that normally have extend their shelf life. And certainly, based on what you just said and what I said earlier, these guys are, I don't know if we're seeing Chris Jericho at his very best, but I don't know that we're not.
Right.
The thing for Christian. Christian's promo work in AEW is nothing short of brilliant and memorable. And he's caustic. He knows the right thing to say and how to say it. His facial expressions are money. And apparently Rob Van Dam is out there in the open market. And I'm looking forward to you mentioned earlier he's going to be in Grand Rapids.
Yep.
And I had no idea what he's going to do. It doesn't matter. He put it on the monitor. I can call it. And so can Kevin and so can Nigel. So it'll be fun to see how this all works out this weekend. We got it's a heavy duty card for Collision, and I hope you guys will check it out.
Let's mention that Meltzer is really, really critical of the decision to put you in this angle. He goes on and on about how it hurts your credibility and they're putting you in a bad spot and it's not working. They've tried to have creative storylines to get you off of Raw 3 times in the last year. The first one was whatever. The second one was worse. The third one is worse. He says Coach has been exposed and it's not helping anybody. And all it does is really hurt the rest of the show. But let's get to the match itself.
Okay.
We get Coachman teaming with.
If we have to, we'll do it. Look at Coach trying to play up that OU Texas rivalry.
Got to do what he can.
Yeah. And there's the King. And I wouldn't wear that shirt again on television. It makes me look like goddamn Happy Humphrey, the jovial fat guy. But yeah, it was one of my finest hours. I'll admit. It was exciting because it was different for me. I don't know how exciting it was for the viewer, but it certainly was exciting for me to do something a little bit different, even though it wouldn't have been my ideal booking for good old JR. But hey, it was a payday, and I did what I was needed to do. I felt bad for those other guys that actually could work, like Lawler and Al. Coach to a lesser degree. He didn't have the experience. His attitude was great, tried hard, but it wasn't, chemistry wasn't there. So normally my role is to sell and make a tag. And that's kind of how I saw that whole deal. It's just sell JR, give the hot tag to Lawler, and somehow or another he'll get you back in there. And look at my stance on the ring apron. I was so uncomfortable there. But hey, look, Lawler would rather wrestle a match like this than broadcast WrestleMania. And he still feels that way. I asked him one time, I said, how long are you going to keep wrestling? And he said, as long as they keep booking me. Okay, I get it. That's what he loves to do. That's his favorite thing about wrestling. The business is in the ring as a performer. And so who am I to try to block that? I'm not going to do it. I mean, he'd come, have fun, go do your thing. And he led me around where I was, it looked like I had a half-assed clue, which may have been somewhat dubious.
This match happens with no commentary.
That's one way that's one way to make sure it doesn't get over.
Well, yeah. Meltzer would say that Lawler pulls down the strap to zero reaction, but that's not his fault. It's the wrong part of the country. And fans were chanting for JR to tag in. Meltzer says, why? They even popped Beg when he got a hot tag. He kicked Snow low and booted him from the ring. He hit Coach with some stiff blows to the back, and Coach sold the offense like a pro. Ross was doing the ground and pound on Coach when Jericho ran in and gave Ross a low drop kick and put Coach on top for the pin. Earlier in the show, Jericho vowed to break Steve Austin down mentally, so he interfered to lead to Austin's best friend losing his job. Yeah. No announcers. My God.
Yeah, it's hard to tell a story when there's no storytellers.
And then you give a speech. And Meltzer says an awesome goodbye speech. And he said that wrestling isn't about the announcers. It was about the world title, trying to put over the main event. If they had put over the title like this for the past 2 years, they wouldn't be having these problems, Dave writes. Of course, the biggest problem is that there are 2 titles. So instead of 1 title that means something, we've got 2 titles that don't mean crap.
Ooh.
And next up, it's the main event. And even though you're
fired, does that mean that we're in the semi-main?
You're in the semi-main, and I'm sure your paycheck reflected it.
Absolutely. Whoever did the payoffs on that one was very generous.
So even though you just lost your job, this is so stupid. We're back to call. You're going to be back to call the main event, and you sit down and wish Jack Briscoe a happy birthday.
Yeah.
And Goldberg's going to defeat Triple H in 14 minutes and 57 seconds. Meltzer would say, after seeing the clip of Hogan Goldberg just a week earlier on Raw, this came across so flat, star and 3/4.
Ooh.
I mean, listen, it's a spear, it's a jackhammer, it's a pin. The 3 count gets a nice reaction, but it dies down pretty fast. And the show was supposed to be a coronation of Goldberg as the WWE Raw champion, but it just isn't that big a deal. What did you think watching it live?
I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
I didn't hate it. I knew they're going to keep the match somewhat short to protect Bill, because Bill had not gained.
Was hurt too, right?
What's that?
And Hunter's working hurt too, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So it was you had to give a little to get a little, and in that regard. But I didn't hate it, quite frankly. I thought it was probably could have happened earlier in the calendar and been better, but that's just hindsight. That's just, that's armchair booking. So, but I didn't hate it. I knew the reasons why it was kept short and very basic and fundamental. And because, yes, you have Hunter who's hurt. He can't do everything that he normally does. At least he was out there trying, and which says a lot. And Goldberg was finally anointed as the champ. And so I just think that the timing of it was a little bit, it just could have happened earlier, and it would have, I think, been better for Bill and the company and everybody involved. But, hey, that's how things work out sometimes.
Well, this is going to end Triple H's nearly year-long reign of terror. Goldberg is the new champ. I guess we're at least going to give this a shot. Instagram or Wrestling Historian on Twitter wants to know, was anybody else seriously discussed to end Triple H's reign of terror? Do you remember it being discussed, him dropping it to anybody else, or was the plan always, let's get to Goldberg?
I think the plan was always, as the best I recall, Conrad, all these years later, was Goldberg. And I think that, again, it would have been more effective for Goldberg and the company if it had been done a little bit earlier in the calendar.
CJ Whitmore wants to know, was the pyro ever an issue for the announcers when the announce table was so close to the stage?
Yeah, well, it was distracting, and you had to be aware of it. But yeah, it was. I hated it up there. I'm so happy that on Collision that we're at ringside. That's where I'm most comfortable, at ringside, personally, just me. If Tony Khan said, I want to move it back to uh, where Excalibur and his crew are sitting, I'll go sit there. But I like it at ringside, and I think it's a better situation. But yeah, it's distracting at times and hot at times. The flames are hot; they're real flames. So it was what it was, But I didn't like it that much just because it was distracting.
Here's a one about the fall from Shane. This is from Lloyd Allen. What was it like being so close to the stage when Shane did that drop?
Well, it was a little daunting. It was a little edgy, Conrad, to be honest with you, because again, I don't know how many bumps of that ilk that Shane had taken in his career, but if any, not many. So it was unsettling because again, we've had these injuries and we've taken these unnecessary chances, and there's no margin for error and a lot of these things. So it was unsettling, maybe the best word I could use.
Here's one from Michael Gavin. When you take a look back 20 years ago, did Triple H's run as world heavyweight champion hurt Raw in the long term?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. That's just me. I like a wrestling heel and a guy that's perceived to be a tough guy. And certainly Triple H was that. So no, I don't think it hurt a thing, quite frankly. It had a quality look. It had a quality feel as Triple H as the champ. So it didn't really bother me. I thought he was I don't know how many guys we had on the roster that would be better qualified at that point in time than was Triple H. He was the most solid. After Vince's run with Austin started subsiding, Triple H became the top heel until Vince decided to step aside, as the top heel, and he was. And then all of a sudden you got a whole different dynamic there, which I like better because Triple H could work.
Right.
Not that Vince couldn't work, but he couldn't work to the level that Triple H was able to accomplish. So I don't think it had any. I thought it was I don't have any issues with that at all. I think Triple H was a great heel champion.
Well, we're going to have a lot of great stuff to discuss in the coming weeks here on Grilling JR. Next week, we'll talk about your 2013 departure from WWE. We'll also be back later to talk about Kane, Halloween Havoc 91, Survivor Series 1998, the XFL, Starrcade 89, the Evolution of Taker, and so much more. You get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. And if your business targets men that are 25 to 54 years old, there's no better place to advertise than right here with us on Grilling JR. You've heard us do some of the same commercials for companies over and over and over. Why is that? Well, because it really works. And if you're looking for men, we got them. It's a super targeted audience, and it's more affordable than you think at advertisewithjr.com. That's advertisewithjr.com. Also love to have your social interaction. We're pretty active on all forms of social media. JR's on Twitter at JR's BBQ. I am at Hey, it's Conrad. And our show handles are easy. It's at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram, Grilling JR over on Facebook. The easiest, cheapest, best way to support the show without question is check us out on YouTube. It's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. That's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. And of course, we got lots of fun swag, including t-shirts and cutting boards and something for everybody over at grillingjrtees.com. But in our live studio audience, we want to give a shout out to everybody who showed up for us today, like Jim and Bobby and Amy and Alex and Richie Ray and so many folks. Denovius Mack was here. We appreciate everybody turning in to be a part of our live studio audience, including Coach Keith. But I think Lindsay has the right idea. She writes, thinking of buying a bunch of JR's BBQ for my foodie fiance. I think that's an excellent idea, Jim, and I know where to do it. It's jrsbbq.com, right?
Atta girl, Lindsay. You got the right idea. Yeah, I'm in Oklahoma now, as you can probably tell by the background. Right above my head is a signed Mickey Mantle jersey. And then, of course, the look is in my living room. John Wayne's picture there, and I got a cool picture of Mark Henry, the great one, The Rock, and my wife Jan. It's up there. I always enjoy looking at those. There's also a urn there for one of our cats. Don't ask me. I just never moved it. So anyway, we have so much fun on this show, and I hope you tell people about it, and send in your questions. We try to answer as many as Conrad lets me, and it should work. It's working out well. So great shows coming up. We'll do our best to give you great stories and behind the scenes things that the average Joe would not be aware of. So it's all good, man. So life is good, Conrad. My leg feels pretty good today. Before I get back on another airplane on Friday to fly, I'm flying to Dallas and then to Grand Rapids, which I'm going south to go north. But that always don't mean anything. Flying right now is the most challenging it's ever been in my lifetime. So I just hope that I keep watching my little apps and make sure everything's on time and all that good stuff. So it should be a fun weekend in Grand Rapids. They haven't seen wrestling. I don't remember when they saw AEW last, if they have ever seen AEW last or seen AEW before. So it'll be a fun weekend. I like the Saturday night shows. The aggression I think it's heightened, and I'm not knocking, our Wednesday night show whatsoever. It's just the fact that it seems as if, because the roster is smaller, there's few people in the back, communication is really good. And so you just got to discover it. You got to discover Collision and watch it for a few weeks. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Check it out. I think you'll love it. You can also see JR live at AEWTIX.com. Tickets are on sale now. Of course, tomorrow night, as you're listening to this, will be a 2-hour Grand Slam Rampage, but then a brand new live show with a pretty loaded card, man. Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks in a death match, if you will. I mean, it's going to be crazy. And then, of course, who could forget Rob Van Dam, man, in his home state for AEW. It's going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to check it out. It's this Saturday night. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, you got an early game. If you're an Alabama fan, you got an early game. So by God, tune into AEW Collision, and we'll see you guys next week right here on Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
We appreciate everybody's support. Tell a friend about our show. Get them to tune in. They watch it once or twice. We got you. So thanks very much for your support. It means the world to me personally, and I know Conrad as well. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.